Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsp@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Time. I'm joined by Eric Jorn, a partner here. What's going on, Eric?
It's a bright, beautiful, sunny fall day.
Yeah? I was going to make a joke and you ruined it. So I'm just going to go forward with it anyway.
That's the goal, is to just give you a response that you just don't expect, so it shocks you.
Eric, would you say that you're growing every day?
Am I growing every day? Well, I think I stopped growing in high school. I don't think I got any taller. Maybe I'm getting wider, but
I was about to say I weighed myself today and I'm definitely growing.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a tough thing to manage. But yes, I do. Every day when I leave the office, there is something new I've learned, or something else that is now in my mind that was not the day before.
Well, that's perfect, because you're growing, and now we are going to go into measuring growth.
Oh, measuring growth,
but not for ourselves, for our businesses.
Okay.
So how do we go along with, or how do we go about measuring growth?
Yeah. So when we think about measuring growth, we're really thinking about it as a growth of revenue standpoint. So I look at growth in many different ways. One of them is, am I growing my skill set? Am I doing things better? Am I becoming more efficient? Am I adopting new technologies? Am I adopting new ways of doing things? It's not just increasing revenues or maybe increasing bottom lines, but it's that. But a lot of those items are really hard to measure. What is much less difficult to measure is measuring revenue growth. So we'll start with the most basic way to measure growth. I'm going to look at my profit and loss. I'll pull up my profit and loss and say my income is X in this period, and it was Y in that previous comparable period. And the change, hopefully the change upward, is my growth. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Most simplistic way of doing it. And most business owners look at that, right? They want to look at January through December, and each month see that incrementally increase. Now it might have to be a year-over-year incremental increase versus a month-to-month increase, depending if that business has seasonality or not.
Right.
But yeah, that's how most business owners probably look at and measure growth.
All right. How else are they looking at growth?
Yeah. So I think when you want to think about growth and planning for growth, one of the most important things to do is to kind of have things laid out, right? So if I have a goal of how much I want to grow, there are many things I have to measure aside from just, here's the new business that walked through the door, right? And when we talk about new business that walks in the door, right? If I talk only about the new stuff when it comes into the business, that's a lagging indicator of growth, meaning that the deal's closed, the revenue's generated. But I also want to measure leading indicators, right? Because we know from the day that you get some traffic, you get a phone call, somebody visits your website, to the day that is now new incremental revenue, there's a time period there. There's a delay. Mm-hmm. And if I want to continually predict that I'm growing, I need to look at those leading indicators and not as much the lagging indicators.
Interesting. So it's more forward thinking. And you're
Correct.
Thinking about something like reducing the amount of time it takes for them to become a client, or success rate in them becoming a client.
Exactly. Right.
So
there's a lot of factors there. And I'll be honest, most business owners, when it comes to growth, there's a lot of hoping that it happens every month. Like, hey, things are going well. I think I'm growing. It feels like we're busier, right? That's a lot of it. But if you're measuring all these different things and you're measuring those leading indicators, right? And those leading indicators are things like traffic to your website, how many times your phones are ringing, maybe how many new contacts that I've added to my database, my CRM. How many of those are we converting to leads, meaning they want to have a conversation with us? And then how many of those are we closing? Right? Because if we see a drop off of traffic, it's most likely going to be a drop off of new revenue generated.
Right. Well, it really does make sense. One thing that I like to think about is just because you're busy doesn't mean you're making a lot of profit, right?
Yep.
So yes, you may have the same amount of orders, but are they the same kind of orders that are generating the same amount of profit for you?
Yeah.
So that's one way to look at it.
And that's a great metric, right? Is what is my average, whatever I'm doing, my average widget, my average repair order, my average monthly fee, my average customer spend, my average ticket at a table for, say, a restaurant, right? That's one way of measuring growth. Is that increasing? And then is my frequency increasing, right? My touch points, my how many bills I'm putting out, my invoices, my ROs, my receipts, whatever, my tables, whatever your business is, are those two numbers also growing?
Interesting. So now let's talk about these customers, these clients, and acquiring them. And, eventually they can't be your customer forever, right?
Yeah.
Something's going to happen one day.
Well, we only like to look at the positive things, right? The new stuff coming in the door. Let's not pay attention to our business also losing customers.
So that would be like saying, here's my P&L, but I only want to look at the P part, right?
Yeah. Only show me my P&L if I have profit, not if I have loss.
But that's the thing. When measuring growth, you have to look at both sides,
you do.
Right? So let's talk about this. You're bringing in clients,
but
you're also losing some, and that may not be your own fault.
Yeah.
Some of them may decide to do. Some might just go out of business or move on.
Yeah. Here's a concept to think about, right? If I bring in 10% new business every year, I might not grow by 10%. I'm probably going to grow by a different number, because at the same time I bring in 10% of new sales, I'm also going to have attrition at the same time. If my attrition rate's 7% and I bring in 10% of new sales, that's only a 3% growth rate. And all of a sudden that's some reality that hits, is that, if I want to grow at 10%, my attrition rate is 7%. Well, I need to replace that 7% and grow by 10%. So that's 17% of new revenue I need to bring in.
So in many ways, we just talked about bringing someone in, the success rate on that. And now we're got to look at basically the inverse of that is we're losing people. How long does the average client stay with you? So that way you can basically prepare for it. Yeah,
definitely. So a great exercise is to run a database of your customers. So you know how long a customer, and you probably have historical data about how many people attrition every year, right? You should factor that into your growth plan, right? If I have X amount, maybe I had a period in time where I had explosive growth, and now it's starting to hit that period of time where they're going to start dropping off. It hit that, say it's 7-year mark. And all of a sudden they're going to drop off in a much larger trove, or maybe I have a big customer that's about to sell off to like a private equity group or something. I know I'm going to lose them as a customer. You need to factor those. You need to think about your business in that realm too, and then factor that into your growth plan. Because if you under prepare, you're going to be underwhelmed with the results.
Interesting. What else do we need to cover with growth?
Yeah. So right, growing is great.
Growing is great.
Now, growing comes at a cost.
It's funny because I did write down right here bad side effects of growth.
Yeah, there are bad side effects, right? So, and maybe I shouldn't say it's bad. Growing in the right way should generally not provide you many at all bad.
But we're talking effects. Like pain points, right?
There are pain points, right? So it costs money to grow. So that's the number one thing. It should hit your P&L, right? You should have some sort of impact financially for this growth. It's not just going to come in the door. You're not just going to open your doors and say, "Come on in," and everybody just pours on in when you're ready. No, you have to go out and you have to market, advertise, and make sure they're top of mind, or building top of mind awareness. So that way, when they are ready to buy, they think of you. That all costs money, right? Sales marketing dollars. So then I have to think about, what's my cost of acquisition? How much money does it cost for me to bring in my revenue? my new revenue, and then as a percentage of that revenue, and then you have your cost acquisition rate. So that way I know if I want to grow by X amount of dollars every year, I know how I have to spend Y. Sometimes it makes more sense and sometimes it doesn't, right? If you are in a period in which you don't have the production team available to service that new business, but I'm like, hey, I still want to grow. I'm going to spend money to grow, in which I'm going to bring in work that I can't service. Well, that's going to create a major financial pain point for your business.
So I guess the next question I want to ask is, how can you grow without having that high level of maintenance, or is that impossible?
How do we grow without that high level of maintenance?
You know, so that resource cost, is it just absolutely inherent?
I think there's a point in time in every business in which it becomes inherent, right? Where you hit it. You know, sometimes if you're a new business or you strike gold within an area, concept, whatever it is, right? You can really win at that point in time because you don't incur the cost to grow and you're growing at a rapid rate, and that's great. But over the long period of time, right? Just like stock market has its peaks and valleys, but over the long period of time, you're going to get a 7 to 10% return on average. Well, marketing and sales costs are very similar, right? If you want to bring in that much, if you want to bring in consistent new revenue, you're going to have to spend for it. So you have to count on that cost being incurred. Now it's different for every business, every industry, whatever it is. But I would, if I plan to grow, I would plan to incur those costs. And if I don't, call it a win for that year and
just say, like, I lucked out this time.
Yep.
Right. You won the lottery. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a 5-star review. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs Plus Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com or email us at bsb@kaizencpas.com.